You're watching the Anti-Violence Project, discussing things that are happening, well, nationally, but also right here in our own community. And we are pleased to welcome Brandy Bynum. She is the lead program coordinator for the Blue Campaign for the Department of Homeland Security. Hello, Brandy.
Hi, good morning.
Thank you for taking your time out and being a part of our Anti-Violence Project. Of course, human trafficking and the like, it's a big part of what we're focusing on during this Anti-Violence Project. And you're the lead coordinator for the Blue Campaign. Tell me what the Blue Campaign is.
So we are a national public awareness campaign designed to educate the public, law enforcement, and industry partners in what human trafficking is, knowing the indicators, and how to appropriately respond to possible cases.
How are you raising awareness? What are some of the tools you're using?
So we do that in a variety of ways. First, through public awareness and outreach with our materials. So if you go on our website, you will find a plethora of materials in multiple languages. We have indicator cards, pamphlets, toolkits, posters, keypad cards that we ship out for free across the U.S. That have both hotline numbers, the National Human Trafficking Hotline, as well as the DHS tip line that are operated 24/7, 7 days a week, that we just ship out so that you can raise awareness in your communities. We also have training for law enforcement, as well as different industries that we have on our website at no cost. We have webinars, educational awareness videos that depict different human trafficking scenarios so that the general public can use those as tools to help them identify the indicators so that if they see them, then you can report them to the tip line.
You really encourage the average American to get a hold of these tools and use them.
Absolutely. It's not just for organizations and industries and law enforcement, it's for the general public too, because we believe that part of eradicating human trafficking means that the public is aware of what it is that is happening right here in the U.S. and that they can play a part by reporting tips to those hotlines to help law enforcement to catch these predators.
You know, I really think it's part of the solution-based, program that the Blue Campaign is really all about. Tell me, there's this thing, victim-centered investigations. I really think that's key. Explain that a little bit, Brandy.
So we actually preach that hard at the campaign, along with our colleagues over at the Human Trafficking Unit. The victim-centered approach is placing emphasis not just on catching the actual trafficker, but getting that victim to safety. So when our investigators get on the scene, they're actually accompanied by a victim assistance specialist who has an extensive background, most of the time in social work. So for DHS, when we're on the scene, we really care about the victim first. So we want to get that victim out of the situation and connect it with resources where they can get the help that they need. So that victim-centered approach is focusing first on the victim, as well as catching the trafficker, but making sure that we get that person in safety.
Do you find the public, and including law enforcement and organizations, do you find that they're open to embracing that approach?
Absolutely, and that's part of our protection portfolio. So we actually have a Blue Campaign strategy that's broken up into 4 quadrants, and one of those under the protection portfolio is law enforcement. And the main outcome and goal of that portfolio is to increase victim-centered approach within law enforcement. So a lot of our training and webinars are victim-centered approach centric, and so we, along with our colleagues at the Human Trafficking Unit, employ that out and deploy that training out. So that we are on the state and local level, as well as tribal and federal, so that all law enforcement will have access to what that is and to how to employ that.
So you've done really something unique in your work in a unified government approach. Explain that a little bit.
Yeah, so there are multiple agencies across the U.S. federal government who have a footprint in trafficking, not just DHS. So at DHS, we have the Blue Campaign, which is, as I mentioned, the public awareness side. We also have our Human Trafficking Unit that's under ICE, who has investigative authority over 400 different types of crimes, which includes human trafficking. We also have colleagues at the Department of State who have a Trafficking in Persons office who work stateside as well as overseas. We have Health and Human Services who focuses on another aspect of the human trafficking, as well as other agencies that have a footprint. And we all work together. There are senior policy operating groups, and so we actually co-chair two of those, which is the public awareness and outreach, as well as the victim services. And so we don't just work with our colleagues and different components within DHS, but across the government. We all play a role, including DOJ and all of these different agencies, to work together to eradicate trafficking within the federal government.
Someone's watching the Anti-Violence Project right now and wants to get some of these materials. How do they go about that?
Super easy. You go to www.dhs.gov/blue campaign, and then in our toolbar, you'll see resources. And one of the great things about our page is that we have a document library that houses all of our materials that you can download and print at home for absolutely free. We also have a tab where you can get materials mailed out to you for free, absolutely free, different languages, as I mentioned, indicator cards, posters. All you need to do is go on our website, fill out the web form, and then we'll ship those out to you so you can play your part in raising awareness.
All right, little bonus question here. Hashtag Wear Blue Day.
Oh, that is our biggest awareness day of the year, January 11th, every year. We push the hashtag Wear Blue Day. Wear your blue. Post a picture on social media. That can be Instagram, Facebook, Twitter, hashtag, and that just shows your solidarity that you are for eradicating human trafficking, and it just lets everybody know that they can go to our website, get those free resources, get that free training to educate not only themselves, but help educate other people.
Wonderful. Brandy Bynum, lead program coordinator for the Blue Campaign for the Department of Homeland Security. Thank you for being a part of the Anti-Violence Project.
Thank you so much for inviting me.
The Anti-Violence Project was created to bring awareness to the issues of rising violence, trafficking, and more. Now we get a chance to see what that looks like from our state government level. We're so fortunate to be joined by Missouri Senator Josh Hawley. Thank you for joining us today, sir.
Thank you.
Senator, it seems as if we're experiencing a rise in numbers across the board when it comes to these issues. Can you tell us what it looks like from the state level, and as a state, what are we prepared to do about it?
Well, when it comes to violence, for instance, I mean, we are seeing an uptick in violence all across the country. And so much of this is because of the attack on police and trying to delegitimize our law enforcement. We've seen this before, and we know what happens. When you declare a war on cops, you see violent crime go up. You know who gets hurt? The police themselves, and then, of course, working families, people who depend day in and day out on the police for safety, for the security of their children, for their neighborhoods. So we've got to do more right now to support our police officers and all of our law enforcement. That's why I proposed a bill that would give every cop in America a pay raise and would help us put more cops on the street. We need to help law enforcement. We need to give more resources to law enforcement, not less. And we need to stand up and go after the bad guys, whether they're traffickers, whether they're violent criminals, whether they're rioters and looters. We need to be sure that the due process of law and the fair and equal protection of the rule of law is something that every single Missourian can expect and depend on.
And I'm glad you brought up trafficking, sir. That's one thing I wanted to ask you about. I know that's an issue that you've had on your radar for some time. Can you tell us a little bit about the legislation that you've introduced?
Absolutely. You know, I think it's just common sense that we should get a sense of how big is this problem nationwide. You know, I was Attorney General of Missouri, the opportunity to really dive into this issue, to go after traffickers in our state. And what I found in that time in office, in my time in office, is that trafficking was way more prevalent in the state of Missouri than I had even begun to imagine. So what I propose is legislation that will conduct a nationwide study about the prevalence of trafficking in the United States. It's amazing to think that we really haven't ever had a nationwide study about the prevalence of trafficking. So I've introduced legislation that would do that. Once you identify the problem, you can begin to solve it, but you've got to identify it first.
Senator, let me go back to where we were talking about the police earlier. Police departments across the nation are reevaluating how they engage with our communities and the safety of the officers that serve them. Senator, I know you were responsible for having the Supporting and Treating Officers in Crisis Act passed, aiding officers and their family members with mental health services and even suicide prevention programs. Will you please talk about the David Dorn Back to Blue Act you've introduced?
Absolutely. Just for a second on the first bill, that was my first piece of legislation that was passed and signed into law here in the United States Senate. And I'm very proud of that. And it was to help officers, police officers, other law enforcement get the support they need to recover. You know, when they've been exposed to traumatic situations, which they are all the time, when they have been put in harm's way, so often they don't have the resources that they need to get the sort of mental health support or other support that they or their families need. And so that bill that was signed by the president into law directs new funding to law enforcement agencies across our state and across the nation in order to get that support to police officers. My new legislation, the David Dorn Back the Blue Act, this is named for Officer David Dorn from our state, who gave his life trying to protect and defend his neighborhood in the midst of rioting and looting there. And this bill would make it possible for every cop in America to get a pay raise. The truth is, our cops are doing so much and we ask so much of them, but yet so many of them are underpaid. A lot of them have to work overtime just to get a decent wage. So this bill would make it possible for everybody, all of them, to get a raise, and also for local police departments to put more cops on the beat.
Senator, this is going to wrap up our interview. I want to thank you for your time with us, but I have to ask you, we're in very uncertain times right now in the midst of a historical pandemic. From the state level, we'd like to know what we can expect in the months to come.
Yeah, I think that we're seeing a comeback. I mean, I think we're in the midst of a comeback. You see that in Missouri. You see people getting back to work. You see kids getting back to school. We've got a long way to go. We still have not yet fully broken the back of this pandemic, but we are well on the way. I'm confident that a vaccine is well on its way. So it's just a matter of time until we eradicate COVID-19 once and for all. In the meantime, we've got to make sure that we're getting folks their jobs back, that we're getting them their dependable incomes back so they can go back to that job and they get their health care on the job, that we're getting kids back to school. So we've got to stay strong and keep pushing ahead. But I believe we're in the midst of a comeback.
Well, Senator, we want to thank you again for making Southwest Missouri very important to you today, taking time out for the Anti-Violence Project, and we look forward to talking to you again.
Thank you.